Can everybody understand me? Because if not, this is going on YouTube, and hopefully there'll be subtitles, because my accent can be quite difficult, so I'm going to try and go half Irish this evening. So here we are. Thanks very much for inviting me along to give this talk this evening. For those of you who don't know me, I edit a video game culture magazine called 5 out of 10. And in June 2014, I released a book called Pali, which I co-wrote with Kaitlin Tremblay. Has anybody actually read that book? Yeah. Okay, well luckily this is not a sales pitch. But it does raise the question of why would we bother looking at old games? You know, whenever you buy a games magazine or a book, it's generally something that just came out. So why would we look at a game that came out in 1998? So what we're really doing is we're taking the critical lenses of today to look at the games of the past. So if you think about the kind of magazine that was out in '98, it was very much a consumer-focused thing. What does it look like? What's the graphics like? How long is it? 95%? Maybe. Yeah, okay. So later on, we're going to have a talk from Joe Martin about game preservation. And actually, I think that we're doing. He's looking forward to it. So I think we're actually on the same page here, and we're tackling the problem from different angles. So essentially what I'm doing is taking a holistic look at old games. It's really just another form of game preservation. So let's go back to 1998, whenever I was 12 years old. So what a year. So we have games like Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, Soul Calibur, Gran Turismo, Pokemon Red, Half-Life, and Jurassic Park Trespassing. There's loads more, and a lot of these games I'm sure quite a few people will remember or will have played, and they really are classics. It's kind of coming from a time when games weren't as mainstream as they are now, but these are kind of like the old masters, if you like. So these are people who are at the top of their game. So things like Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, these are games that kind of set the benchmark for how games were going to go moving forwards. So obviously I'm here to talk about one game from 1998, and that game is Unreal. So it was developed by Epic Games, back when they were called Epic Mega Games, and it's also the debut of the Unreal Engine. And there's quite a lot of hype behind it, particularly related to the quality of the graphics, which is why it says, alter your reality forever. And that's where a lot of that chat comes from. Well, you know, probably altered somebody's reality. And so it received quite a lot of critical acclaim at the time. So my aim this evening is not to convince you that it was the best game of 1998, because it obviously wasn't. It's to show you that it's a game that's still unique. It was different at the time, but it still feels alien now. And it's different right from the moment you load the game. So I do have some video clips. It doesn't matter that much that there's no music, but you could probably sing along with these in your head. So here you go. Here's the classic. It's Daytona USA. Hey! Remember this one? Nobody. Okay. So arcade games usually run this kind of demo look. It's sometimes called a track mode. And the aim of these things is to be really exciting and enticing, and it's to get you to insert a coin, you know, it's to make you actually want to play this thing. But for games like Daytona and a lot of fighting games, this isn't actually a direct representation of what you're going to play. It's just like a TV highlight of somebody else's game. But when we move into home video games, there's a big difference in what these sequences are showing. So they've got a couple of functions. They're a technological showcase to show you that the game's working, which is really important in a PC game. And they're illustrative of what the game's actually like to play. And so these are the kind of thing you'd see running in a TV in a shop, and I'm sure people who wanted a Mega Drive or a SNES, all that kind of thing. They're encouraging you not just to play the game, but to actually buy the game. So what do these sequences look like nowadays? Here's Gears of War 3, and yes, that is actually a video. So we're now in the age of things like YouTube and Twitch, and that kind of thing. We don't need a track loops anymore because we can download these trailers whenever we like, which is a shame because, you know, I kind of like those things. So going back to PC games from the era, we've got, sorry this is so dark, you've got Duke Nukem 3D on the left, which is 1996, and you've got Quake 2 on the right, which is 97. And again, get the idea of what's going on, but this is what Unreal does a little differently. So it opens with us flying over a nice castle, and it's actually much closer to the track loops of the arcades. It doesn't tell you what playing the game's like, so it's mysterious, it's different, and it's quite enticing. I wrote a retrospective for Eurogamer about Unreal by the time the book came out, and somebody posted a link to this video within about 5 minutes. So it's quite a nostalgic thing. People really remember it, and I know I certainly did whenever I started replaying the game for the book. So Unreal sets itself up as being really different from its contemporaries from the outset, and this isn't going to be a run and gun fest like Doom or Quake. This is going to be a bit of an adventure we're going on here. So let's look at the way Unreal approaches storytelling. So when people talk about the benchmarks for storytelling in an FPS or other action games, they often start with Half-Life. But Half-Life isn't out for 6 months, so I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. So with things like Doom and Quake and Duke Nukem, you've got what I like to call story.txt, and that's where you get a nice manual or a readme, and it's something like, you're a hero, so go kill the aliens. Go on, kill them all. And there's not a lot more to it than that. But Unreal is very different in that regard. We do get a little backstory from the manual, which is you're a prisoner on the spaceship that's heading for a penal colony and it crash lands on the world of Pali. So you can read that from the manual, but whenever you actually wake up in the prison cell with your dead cellmates around you, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. And the fidelity of Unreal's engine allows for incidental storytelling. So Unreal's levels aren't just brown boxes filled with monsters, they're worlds with histories, and they have their own stories to tell. So this is the moment whenever we leave the prison ship for the first time and we see the surface of the Pali. It's a bit like leaving the sewers in Oblivion, if anybody's experienced that bit, and you see sort of Cyrodiil revealed in all its glory. This is the same thing, this was 8 years earlier. And some of these stories are told through the environment. So this is the crashed prison ship from the outside, and we move from this claustrophobic environment to a really stunning waterfall environment. And we don't actually need some drill sergeant going, oh, this place is alien, man, get me this. We don't need that. We can get that feeling simply from being there and appreciating the landscape, and that's what this engine allows for. It was really revolutionary because it allowed for such scale and spectacle. So most of Unreal's words are alien structures, but we do encounter another human vessel later in the game. And Unreal uses triggers, which are basically invisible checkpoints to tell its story. So here, I just encountered a Scar Warrior, and he's running away because I'm about to kill him. But in '98 it was quite novel to do this. Most triggers just kind of spawn more enemies to kill, something like Doom, rather than causing the creatures to run away and set off an alarm. The other way Unreal tells stories is through the Universal Translator, which is a device that you pick up before you even get a weapon. The dead humans, as well as some of the dead aliens, have their own stories to tell, so they've got little text logs you can read as you go through the game. The main difference between this and modern games is that now somebody else just reads the logs for you, which I think takes away a bit of the mystery. So I kind of wanted to do a live Let's Play of the game, but I didn't want to risk that. You know what they say, don't work with animals or children. So don't work with animals, children, and projectors with HDMI cables in. So I didn't want to risk that, so I pre-recorded this earlier in the day. So my favourite level in the game is the Sunspire, and to me it's a really perfect example of how the game does what it does, and how it does things really differently. We actually devoted an entire chapter of this in the book because it was my book, so I got to pick what we did. So here we kind of know from the diary excerpts we've read in the translator this was a place of refuge. You can kind of see the spire tulling up here. It's a bit of a dark game. So it's this plinth of rock sticking out of a pool of lava. You don't actually know if it was whittled out of a volcano or if it's always been there. Either way, it's architecturally unlikely, but it's not implausible. You can tell I played this for about 30 hours because I know exactly where that guy is. So the Sunspire is a sanctuary. Whenever you reach it, you're like a pilgrim, like the others who have gone before you. And we're going to go all the way to the top of that. So the use of vertical height and the great progression is quite a common trope in video games, especially in early platform games, things like Rainbow Islands, Mega Man. There's a similar effect at the end of Half-Life 2. So things like Half-Life and Quake couldn't actually do this. Only the Unreal Engine could attempt that. That's just me playing about, by the way. I knew it was a long walk. So there's an impression all the way through Unreal that these designers' imaginations are really running wild and they're having a lot of fun with this first time. So said. So when we get to the door of the Sunspire, is that going to play? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So once you get to the door, you come up here and it says safe haven for all those who seek refuge. So again, it's kind of setting up the story, and you have to remember the kind of contemporaries with things like Quake 2. We went into Brown Box Land where somebody was making brown boxes and monsters. So it's a bit more interesting. I don't know why I paused here, but again, you can see I've played this for a long time because I know that guy's going to come in the roof. And then he comes in. So, Scar Warrior bursts in through the roof, and we know that the safe haven has been corrupted by the Scar. They landed in Pali, much like ourselves. We're actually both aliens. As I said before, you're not actually a hero in Unreal, we're just kind of passing through and trying to survive, and we're not here to clean up the corruption, but you fulfill that role anyway. I just kind of played this for a couple more minutes to show I wasn't totally rubbish at the game. This guy does die. No, there we go, right, got it. So, as you go, you pick up these translator messages, and they're kind of like a really literal Lonely Planet guide, and they add depth to the culture beyond someone that's just really different and beautiful and hostile. You can't really hear it, but as I kill those two guys, the music changes. So the music in Unreal is all modular. It's made by the same composers as Deus Ex, and it changes depending on context, and the new tracks are added to the mix as we go in. So you start off with a kind of a low ebb, and then you'll get various synths and guitars, different synths coming in. So one of the things I really love about this level is how much detail is actually packed into it. This is a screenshot I've taken from inside the spire. So a lot of Unreal's levels are quite TARDIS-like. So the prison ship we saw at the start, the actual map you're in is much bigger than it appears whenever you go outside of it. This one's different because everything's contained within the spire. There's actually no trick to the spaces. And of course that means that it can sometimes look ridiculous because we're now inside the rock and we can see all of these strange elevator platforms. So halfway through the level, we then move outside of the spire, and again the Unreal Engine allows us this massive scale. So we're now halfway up, and I think I'm going to look over the edge. Go on, go on. Look, there you go. Yeah. So now we're halfway up, and we can see that path we went down when we first came here, so we can see how far we've come. And obviously, this gives us a break from this kind of claustrophobia that you have when you're indoors. It can be very disorienting in this level, but it also tells us how far we've come. And then we go back in, and then we head for the summit of the spire. And the view here is pretty incredible. And here, you actually hear the wind rushing as you go up. So it kind of speeds up as you approach terminal velocity. And as we get to the top, the view here is pretty incredible. So there's a bit of mysticism to it. So at the top here, we book a magic crystal, and we get a skylift that's going to take us to the Pali haven. So it's not hard science fiction. There's a bit of magic in there, but, you know, that's part of the fun. So modern games don't really tell stories like this. It's very different to something like Half-Life or Bioshock or Call of Duty. Half-Life does do incidental storytelling, but doesn't really have the richness of Unreal's lore. And of course, there's no right or wrong here, you know, it's just a different approach. But I quite like the way it keeps things ambiguous and it lets your mind fill in the gaps of it. So I'm going to skip this because it's just me decapitating someone. There we go, got him. Yeah, you can cut people's heads off that. So of course, I planned this nice bit, I was going to show you what was going on at the top, but I was under a bit of time pressure when I recorded this, so this is a different way to see just how far you've come. Don't really know why I did this, but there you go. So we walk all the way down, there you go, it's quite tall. This isn't going to end well, by the way. So. And we got really desperate near the end. Yeah, right, okay. So you get the idea, it's quite a drop. So we all remember this one, right? Who remembers Doom? Yeah, okay. Yeah, good reception for Doom. so we all remember you start off with this pea shooter, then you upgrade to these big laser guns and rocket launchers. That was pretty common for games at the time. In modern shooters, you probably have usual pistols, assault rifles, shotguns. Even if it's a science fiction game, so these tropes kind of remain. It's always the same guns. Even Half-Life's Gordon Freeman, who's a particle physicist, uses shotguns. I mean, okay, sometimes he does launch toilets at people as well, but most of the time he's using standard military kit. And Unreal's not a military shooter. You're not a soldier, you're not a mercenary, you're not an action hero. And the weapons are really alien, they're bizarre. So your starting pistol is what this guy's using, and it's this upgradable electric death cannon. You've got a big blade that shoots baby blades that bounce off the walls. You've got the laser rifle that shoots a standard beam, or you can shoot a ball of energy at somebody and then you can blow that up instead. This is one of the first games to have alternate fire in the weapons, and that's something that's kind of died out a little bit in recent years. And yeah, you've also got the delightfully named GES bio rifle, which stands for green exploding shit. And I couldn't actually get a picture of the green shit because it had already exploded by the time I took the screenshot. So the unusual nature of these weapons is part of its unique alien atmosphere. And it affords a lot of strategy to the player, so you can set traps, you can coax enemies out of cover, and they're intelligent enough to react. And Unreal's enemies are so clever that you can actually feel like you're having a bit of a death match with them. And in hindsight, it seems really obvious that the game would evolve into the Unreal Tournament series. So why does it matter if Unreal is a really cool and unique game? Who cares? Why are we here? What does it all mean? Sorry, it's getting a bit existential. It matters because without that uniqueness, you end up with something like this. So this is Gears of War Judgment. It's an exciting game, it's one I really like, but it's not particularly interesting. There's no mystery to it, there's no sense of exploring something new and exciting. Okay, so does anybody know what specific game this is from? Any ideas? This is not Gears of War, it's Unreal Tournament 3. So the best bit is actually finding a picture when I did a Google search for Gears of War. So even Google search doesn't know the difference. It's just the same fucking game, you know? So the reason Unreal Tournament 3 fails is because it's another brown, po-faced, boring military game. That's why I really love the original Unreal so much. It still feels refreshing and it still does different things. So as players, we crave originality, and people are always begging for something new and different, and that's not misguided, but I kind of think that maybe we're looking in the wrong direction. And I don't think we need to wait for something new and exciting. We don't need new consoles or new franchises. There's still so much more exploration to do, so many exciting things to do, and strange aliens to meet in the past. Or, to put it really bluntly, old games are cool, and let's make time to rediscover and reappreciate them. Thank you. So I know people can feel kind of intimidated in this kind of setting, so if you don't want to ask anything now, you can feel free to email me or you can harass me on Twitter, whatever you want. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Just actually kind of interested in your opinion, regardless of gameplay or how the game plays, with your interest on environmental storytelling and the atmosphere, what do you make of the Dark Souls series? Is that a good thing? Or, you know?
I've actually played that. I played about 5 minutes of the first Dark Souls and it seemed really good. I think it's probably a very similar thing to Unreal, where I mean, Unreal does handle you a bit, and there's one particular bit in this level where you go up this bell tower and you find out the story of the girl who's in it, and the whole level is about working around and finding out what happened to her. And so in that sense, it's a lot more explicit than something like Dark Souls, which is very much, here you are, you're gonna die, sorry. So you can tell I've really played this, I've done the homework. So I think it's nice to let the player's mind fill in the gaps a bit. That's what it's one of these kind of show don't tell things. When you think about horror films, and horror films used to be like, there's something like Psycho, you don't actually see somebody getting stabbed, right? Because whatever your mind is conjured up is much more horrible than what you're actually seeing. Whereas now if you get something like, I don't know, a remake of The Hills Have Eyes, it really left nothing to the imagination. So that's where I feel like horror films, games are missing out a bit, because I always like to be an explorer and I like to poke every hole and fall off every cliff to my death. It's like whenever I think it was playing Battlefield Bad Company 2, and it's like, return to the battlefield, no, I'm fucking go over here, leave me alone. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like the kind of thing I would enjoy if I have played it, which I haven't.
Well, that Fallout 3, I mean, you've got so many choices and you can play the game unlimited amount of times with, you know, various consequences. I think that's quite a good situation.
I famously hate Fallout 3. I think it's really boring. At least I've played 80 hours of Fallout 3, and this is where people go, why did you play it for 80 hours if you didn't like it? I don't know. It was on Xbox, it had something to do. I mean, filled it all. I don't know what I didn't like about Fallout 3, but I just found it very bleak and there's something unhuman about it. I know everybody...
It's very bleak, but...
Everybody disagrees. I mean, like, oh, Fallout 3, man, it's a fucking brilliant game, man. Like, everybody loves it, but for like, I really like the Elder Scrolls games, and I really like, particularly like Oblivion, which is the reason I got a 2-1 in my university degree. So I really like Oblivion and Skyrim, but for some reason Fallout didn't gel with me, and I'm not quite sure why. But, I mean, games got things like, I forget the name of the town you go to, you find the little boy, and there's the ants have taken over the village. I vaguely remember that bit. It was quite a good incidental one. You could go into the vaults and pick up pieces of stories. Yeah. And again, yeah. So, or even to do things like they had the Mothership expansion pack where you find the down alien spaceship, and that in itself is a kind of incidental thing. But I still didn't like it. But yeah. But thanks for mentioning it. Thank you.
I had a question about the environmental storytelling and the graphics and all that kind of stuff. What percentage of it is new graphical bits and pieces you could do with the Unreal Engine that you couldn't do with other things before, and what percentage of the design team trying to do something, on their own, do you think?
I don't know, I think that's hard to say because the two probably go hand in hand. I don't think you get divided out like that, and obviously if you're able to create these kind of worlds, then first of all you're going to go make them, but then that says, oh well, what can we do for the storytelling now? What's quite interesting was that, I don't know if anybody played the Unreal Tournament games, but it used to tell you the name of the person who designed the map. So you're like, Cliffy B, or Misha the Sled Dog, and those ridiculous names. And it was the same team that did Unreal, and they did a huge disparate number of levels, and one of the things we couldn't decide when we were writing the book was who actually came up with these stories, who came up with the characters, because it's actually quite consistent across the game. Like the waterfall to start is called Nylev's Falls, which makes no sense, but it's actually Evelyn backwards because that's the name of the level designer's wife. So it's got a nice wee, totally pointless morsels in there. I don't know how you would tease that out. I think that, I guess it's just one of these things where, as I said, it was 98 and the medium was kind of maturing creatively a bit, and people weren't thinking so much about how can we do Mario in 3D. It's like, oh, now we've got Zelda in 3D, what can we do with it and how can we expand it? So I think it's probably not so much the engine itself, because obviously Half-Life came out a few months later and that was based on the original Quake engine. I think it's more that it was just a more general creative maturity at the time. If I have to make it up, I guess. Right, okay, I'm getting told to shut up. So, yeah, I'm done, thanks.